And joining me now to discuss the controversial revelations made by Prince Harry and Meghan and the Queen's reaction is a global affairs analyst, James Wood, who is joining me from Brussels in Belgium. Good to have you join us, James Wood. Let me start by getting your reaction to this bombshell interview and the fallout so far.
Thank you so much for having me. Now, these allegations are arguably far more nuanced than the royal scandals of the 1990s, and the allegations where they're talking about that the palace being racist, a toxic tabloid culture invading their private lives, Meghan's mental health issues being neglected, these are both disturbing and horrible as the very least. But away from this, if you really think of it, these are issues that people of color face every day. And I'm actually happy that this has been brought forward and stirred debate for action, just like the Black Lives Matter movement. We also need to remember that the monarch herself, the Queen, has had more people of color work with her, has done more with countries of color than any other monarch has in their history. She has kept the Commonwealth when others wanted to disband it. She was in Africa and Kenya when her father died. So in essence, I'm actually happy that this has been brought to the fore to be discussed as a way of debate.
So when you listen to that interview, which I believe you have, you would realize that a lot of the points made were significant. Issues around mental health, the desire to commit suicide, and you also look at one of the most significant ones is that of race or racism. But when you look at the statement made by Buckingham Palace, what stands out for you in that statement, especially how it addressed all of these issues?
So, going to the statement, before I go to the statement itself, race is a key issue that we need to address. Racism is literally in society on every single level. It really needs to be addressed. Now, look at it from Buckingham. It was expected they would respond in such a manner, very short, very concise, showing elements of empathy. So if I remember the statement correctly, they speak about that they're saddened to learn to the extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Meghan and Harry. In that statement itself, they're saying that there's new things coming to light that they were not aware of. That's what that statement is saying. Then they go on and discuss the issues of race are concerning. So they're acknowledging that there is something of race. And not to forget, Harry and Meghan did indicate that these issues of race were said by a certain member, but they did not disclose identity. But they removed it from the Queen and Prince Philip. They said it was not them. So we don't know who that person is. And then the statement goes on to say that while some recollections may vary, they're taken seriously and will be addressed privately. So that particular element is saying that there's some way of refuting some of the statements Harry and Meghan made by saying that they may vary, recollections may vary. But by ending it, saying that they will address this privately, they're closing this matter. They're saying this is a private matter. Now, I can understand why they're doing that, because this could be damaging to the monarch. As I alluded earlier in the conversation, the Queen is the head of the Commonwealth, comprising of 54 mainly former British colonies, about 2.4 billion people. And not to forget, when the Queen ascended to the throne in 1952, Great Britain itself was actually built on this whole aspect of immigration, of bringing people from the colonies to come in and develop the United Kingdom. So in that statement itself, I think there was no surprises in how the statement came. But I don't expect to hear more from Buckingham Palace, but maybe from the Sussexes, we may hear more.
But doesn't that speak of different standards in addressing issues? Because on one hand, there was a statement released by Buckingham Palace on plans to investigate allegations of bullying made against Meghan by former staffers. And yet, this particular issue raised by Meghan is going to be dealt with privately.
I think that the key issue of that statement, I can get where the opinion is coming from, that there's double standards. But what I'm actually envisioning on what the palace is doing, they're trying to more or less kill off this thing from being a public rhetoric. They're trying to bring this to be more privately handled. As to whether investigations will be done, that is between that is something I cannot really comment on. But I do agree that this is something that really needs to be looked into deeper and needs to get to the bottom of it. But I can see where they're coming from in saying that this is going to be handled privately, to move it away from public, as the damage that this can cause in the public eye. They're deeming this to be extremely dangerous and something that they cannot, I think, deal with at this current time, being in public rhetoric. So that is something, an opinion that we can all differ on as we go forward. And away from this, when we look at this, I've had speaking on my personal level, I've had the honor of meeting some of the royal family members, such as Prince William, where we served on the board together on wildlife. And you look at what Prince Harry has done in his life of constantly putting Africa at the helm. It showcases that his upbringing has always been about engaging with people of color, living with people of color, putting Africa at the forefront. So on this issue, I don't think the palace itself, in terms of the monarch, are racist at any level at all. I don't think so. I completely disagree with that assertion. Are there people who carry racial tones? Other people? Yes, that exists, and that's what needs to be investigated.
So here is, on one hand, here is an allegation of racism. On the other hand, we're hearing from you that the palace isn't racist. We haven't seen any act of racism by the palace in public. But taking this into account, how